It's like 4 in the morning. I decided to have a cup of tea. I hadn't really made a vlog in a few days, except the damn gas tank deal. I'm not really trying to get these watched or anything, so if you have time to watch them, that's cool, it's great, you know. If not, that's cool too. It might go on a while. I'm going to talk about addiction and AA and kind of focus on that, try to anyway. Sometimes I'm successful at that, other times not, but it's something I've had a tremendous amount of experience with, and it's been like this huge epic part of my life, you know. And I need to get some tea going. It's the kind of thing, it'll take a while is what I'm saying. If that, I use these vlogs like FM radio, like you know, the vlogs I watch. And somebody said something about they go on pretty long, and sometimes they do. Damn it. I just hate this little tripod. Man, they do. You know, I find for me, it's sort of my attitude and sort of the headspace I'm in at times. And if I'm in the mood to hear somebody else's thoughts on something extended, and I want, and most of my watch, I'm like, man, the son of a, you know, the guy quit at 15 minutes just as I was really sort of getting into it, you know, into his vlog. So it's where your head's at, you know. Somebody said, anyway, I try not to let anything make me censor myself, and you know, especially when I'm whether it's there's so much in life and society where people want you to, or sort of want you to censor yourself or suggest you should. And some of it's true and appropriate, and as a professional editor, sometimes I feel I should edit these video logs a lot, but I don't want to have the spiffiest vlog in the world, you know. Like I say, I don't really care if they get watched. So with that said, if one person comes along in 20 years and watches this and it helps them, and good. But you know, yeah, my first meeting of AA, and I'll preface this by saying I don't go anymore, but I did and have been around it since 1979. So it's 89, 99, 2009, like 33 years. 21 of those years were sober, clean and sober. And thanks in part to AA, it's really something that's very useful if you have a drug and alcohol problem. And I do believe these things, they will absolutely be cured with science, as the book says, you know. Maybe someday these things will be cured, but science hasn't done so yet. I think we're right on the verge of huge and dramatic breakthroughs and being able to just take a one-time treatment and have these tendencies mapped out of your genetic code, you know, that and aging and all kinds of inconveniences to the human animal. But you know, another thing is, I mentioned somewhere in the net, I mean, I don't go to AA anymore. I would, but it was a big part of my life, and I wouldn't really have the things I have or anything at all. I probably wouldn't be alive without it, you know, or have the sort of enlightenment that I've gotten. A lot of that's, where are they? So if you're kind of new to it, what goes on there is it just kind of puts you, for me, I found it sort of puts me in a space of like I'm around other people of like mind, and I would go just to remind myself, I don't believe in everything they talk about. A lot of it I do, but not all of it. Some of it's just complete bullshit, and people seem to exaggerate and sort of get obsessed. I found the people who are like, the big book is my Bible, and this is how I live in it. Oh my God, those people militant like that. It's kind of like they tended to be like the most fucked up people, and the whole thing of AA is to if you approach it right or correctly, it's to give you a balance and to be a bridge back to your life, not your life. So it was incredibly useful for me. There was there's a woman on the net, and I mentioned that I don't go anymore, and I'd outgrown it, and she's not sober yet, just barely. And she said, yeah, I've outgrown it too. And I'm like, dude, it was a 30-year journey of enlightenment and knowledge and education and experience that got me to the point where I can say confidently, yeah, I've sort of outgrown that. But I would go again. It's my bad attitude sometimes towards AA is because I'm fucked up. I'm approaching it wrong. There's a guy on the internet too, Stanton Peele, who obviously I a few years ago kind of studied his work and looked at him and the things he said, and somewhere he's totally anti-AA and blah blah, and he offers no alternative, and then also, and it has doctor in front of his name, which I've seen, nerdy Bob that I know, nerdy, stupid, ignorant, unenlightened Bob that I know put doctor in front of his name, and the next day he's like, Bob the know-it-all doctor, and it's like, no, you're still Bob the fucking asshole. So anyway, sometimes that doctor thing goes a little far, but anyway, his thing is that it's a horrible thing and it doesn't work and blah 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 blah, blah, and offers no alternative. He's really against it. And then I was reading somewhere in one of his writings or his vlog that really what it is he wrote somewhere that the women who go to AA will end up hooking up and getting screwed by some guys who go to AA, and that does happen, sure. They're not any more than in real life, but it was obvious he had sort of a woman that he was in love with her at some point go to AA and get taken away from him, and he's really resentful. But a lot of people pay attention to this guy, and he doesn't seem to be very much on the ball about anything, really. Well, some things, actually, but he's just off the mark on AA. At this point in time, we don't really have an alternative for people who have drug and alcohol problems, and it's the kind of thing where I went for many years, and it was helpful. I can't say that it was the reason I got clean and sober. I mean, for me, it just hurt so bad to drink and use anymore. Even though, I could go get morphine at a doctor now, I don't want it anymore. I'm in a lot of pain. So be it. That's just the way life is, I'm in a lot of physical pain. And that stuff, when your ability to be aware is based on sort of the acuity and the sensitivity of your nervous system, and all the fun drugs they kind of put a mute button on your nervous system. So in a way, you're not really alive. You're sort of but not really fully alive. And a lot of the things that I said and did, I was like, oh man, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I did that. I thought I was, nobody knew, and I thought I was cool at the time. It was okay. So this is probably like 10, 15 in already. It may go an hour. I don't know. I'm not going to censor myself. If you want to watch it, that's cool. If you don't, then, there's plenty of cat videos and stuff. But, the statistics are 5%. I used to do a lot of volunteer work at central office in Los Angeles. I may have captured the bug. No. And I used to do a lot of volunteer work at the central office in Los Angeles, AA. And the statistics are 5% of all alcoholics will find AA and get sober in it. Of that 5%, 1% of those, 1% of 5% will maintain a lifelong sobriety. And it's been just such an ordeal in my life, and a lot of other people's lives in Russia, and I think America's probably pretty much the same, except we're better at hiding it. In Russia, 50% of all deaths are attributed directly or indirectly to the use of alcohol. And alcohol is really a drag. I don't know why people just didn't go straight for the drugs. Alcohol sucks as a drug. And one of the sort of really messed up things that can happen at AA is that alcohol is a drug. And so you have AA and you have Alcoholics Anonymous and you have NA, Narcotics Anonymous, and there's a big sort of, I've been around this and have studied it and actually worked professionally in the field a little bit, and it's just experienced it, and one of the things is because of the way it's set up, they tend to put alcoholism separate from drug addiction, and kind of it is, but not really. And so that's sort of unenlightened thinking. I mean, when I first got sober, my first sponsor, he actually plays guitar with Paul McCartney now. Hey man, it's 30 some years later, anyway, he would say any meeting is a good meeting, and he's a good guy, but a screwed up guy, we all are, and with all kinds of weird, crazy ideas, and alcoholics tend to obsess and kind of make everything bigger than it is, there are no big deals, but he would always say any meeting is a good meeting, any 12-step meeting is a good meeting, and that kind of taught me to realize, like, to just open my mind, to certain ideas and things, but this whole deal, sometimes, I used to speak a lot before thousands of people. I was asked to speak all the time at AA and NA, and you couldn't tell from this, but it's, I'm was good at it, and enjoyed it, and they always say when the hand of AA is extended, you answer the call or whatever, and so, but it was, a lot of friends have died and stuff, so I thought, yeah, I'll do that, and I did for years, but it would never fail. I would go to like a meeting with 50 people and be talking, and I'd say, well, part of my story is also drugs, and there'd always be one asshole who didn't quite get it, and in his first 90 days or 10 years, you're new. In the first 10 years, you're new in AA, at least, if not 20, And, to assert his sort of control, he didn't understand this is a control issue. Always one asshole would go, well, no, we don't talk about drugs. This is AA, and, get on that trip. And it's like, and so I would go, oh, okay, let me rephrase that without batting an eye and go, I would just phrase it in a way like, well, when I would always say, when I would get loaded doing this, or I would never say I'd get drunk or use drugs. I'd just say I would be loaded doing, and get around that kind of small-minded bullshit thinking. And there's a purpose why AA was designed the way it is, to keep alcohol sort of separate in that era, but now we know a whole lot more. More will be revealed than it has been, and it's the disease of addiction that we're talking about, and it's a bitch. And like I say, it's been a huge part of my life. I like to kind of see myself and am as somebody who's experienced the full gamut of AA and addiction, and sort of can look on from the outside and go, oh, yeah, I'm sort of, I get it now. After, it only took 30 some years, but that's one thing I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that goes on there, but I will say this: if you're not sober, or if you're newly sober in your first 10 years of sobriety, it can't, sometimes I'll say to, I've been talking to an old friend recently, and he's like, oh, I used to go to AA and I don't anymore because I always hear because X, Y, and Z. Really, it's kind of like saying, and I sort of understand that, but it's sort of like saying being drowning in a lifeboat, in the middle of the ocean with no other lifeboats around and going, no, no, I don't do orange lifeboats, thank you. It's kind of like that sort of craziness, But I've done it and I've been there, I definitely have been there. And what I find now is, like I was saying, it's sort of, I did it for about 10 years of my sobriety. I did not speak at all. I would go and listen. And by listening, I sort of learned, like, listening to other people speak. And a lot of times it wasn't even how they shared, or what they said. I'd just be like, oh, man, mental note, do not, ever take the attitude this fellow had. I learned so much from other people. A lot of it's sort of, you learn, like, oh, people don't like it when you're, you come off in this manner. This guy's obviously, an unmitigated ass. And, anyway, I learned a lot of indirect stuff and, spiritual experience in God and all that stuff. I think, really, for the most part, I'm not religious, and my concept of how the universe actually works, common sense works, I do believe there is a cosmic force that ties all things together. There must be it just helps me to believe there's a rhyme and reason. I think all of that stuff is really just trying to get you to understand that there are sort of there's a whole lot bigger picture than you, and to be a player amongst players and a man amongst men rather than sort of the center of the stage. A lot of stuff is about me getting out of my own way. I'll be doing like music or a song, and a good example, I'd be mixing something for another band, well known or not, and I'd come on a mix, a style that would be incredible. And they'd be like, well, that's cool, but we really wanted like this. And I'm like, okay, you can have it your way, an incredibly mediocre but acceptable thing, or you could have it like this, and it's a stunner. And most people are not enlightened enough to just go, oh, give me the stunner. I mean, it's amazing how many people do not go, yeah, they go, yeah, I don't want stunning, I want mediocre, or give me both. It would be just, nope. So a lot of, they can't get out of their own way, and a lot of it's about getting out of your own way. And, as far as resentments, like, it's pretty obvious this Stanton Peele character has a resentment towards AA because he tirades against it on the internet, and I haven't said anything about it at all in my vlog or in any way. But like I say, it's incredibly useful. I mean, it's like a tool, You wouldn't take a crescent wrench that you need to open or turn a bolt with. You wouldn't take that and smash yourself in the face with it. And that's kind of like AA is. You take the right tool and it's yours to use. You're using the tool. It's a bridge back to your life. You use it the way that you see fit. You don't let it use you. It's not a cult, It's not a religion. I mean, I had a sort of a fun debate with a theologist one time about that, and really kind of by the definition of people who gather together to improve themselves to, there were several definitions of a religion he had, but then you could also define any self-help group or any political party as a religion, and with that too, that was my retort. So anyway, but I would say, hey, if you're newly sober, don't close your mind to stuff. It was incredibly useful, and I have gained so much as a person from my experiences at AA by taking some of the concepts that I picked up there, and a lot of them are non-AA concepts, of spirituality, and expounding on those in my life, But it's like this, and I'm missing so much because it's such a depth. One girl, Inga Cole, we were young kids and newly sober. We'd never been around sober people or sober before, and we were both volunteering at the central office in Los Angeles, and she was like, it really is. She just blurt out, this is better than fucking TV. And it really is. It's just it's a depth of experience that you just can't get anywhere else. You won't get anywhere else. And I think it's sort of coming. There's a book, AA Coming of Age, and I'm not a big book pounder or an AA. I've had a lot of experience with it. It helped me. I would go now, but I've sort of outgrown it. And one of the things that can happen too at AA, you have to bear in mind, rule number one is that everybody that goes there has problems. They're troubled people. So you wouldn't go sort of, the whole layout of we're here to just talk about not using drugs is a great idea and cool, support, so on. But you wouldn't go to like the biggest screwed up person and ask them about life advice. You sort of, I think one of the things that happens there is that sort of alcoholic addicts typically become non-socialized. They're not, they become desocialized. And so it helps you gain back your social skills. It helps you learn to set boundaries with some of the big book pounders and the hardcore assholes that can go there. 99% of the people are cool, but one person saying one thing can really leave a horrible feeling in your mouth. And the thing about that is, I've never met an alcoholic or addict yet who wasn't so very sensitive, way overly sensitive, and myself included. And what it's taught me, and it's helped me with this internet experience, doing YouTube with my music, is that I learned to sort of tune out the bullshit and the negativity and the garbage. And I think that's part of what goes on at AA. You sort of learn to toughen your exterior because you've had a drug and alcohol exterior, for so many years. A lot of people don't have any kind of defenses or they don't have that normal capability to sort of defend themselves anymore. And, so anyway, I felt like saying something on it because so many of my friends have died, and so many of my friends are screwed up in mental institutes. I've been in thousands of them, with depression and chronic pain and addiction, and those three playing off of each other, which is another area that is not fully explored. The good news is we're right on the verge of having permanent cures for all of these things. The bad news is not yet. So all we really have is the 12-step programs. And, it's, like I said, it's a tool. It's for you to use. See, if you start feeling like, well, I don't like AA because it does this. And, I've seen people who are not even sober yet copping an attitude before they know anything about it. And what's the book saying? These are all little witty sayings that are elsewhere besides AA. But it's something that's incredibly useful, and unless you've gone a lot for more than a 10-year period, you're probably not anywhere near sort of coming to the phase where you can say, I've grown beyond this. Some the whole word alcoholic, I have a couple of friends, one in particular, and he's a practicing alcoholic. He drinks, but you put the word alcoholic out there, and it's like calling him a child molester or something. It's horrible. And one of the things that, you also learn around AA is that people who haven't drank for many, many years are still alcoholic. People that have 50 years sober, still an alcoholic, So there's a whole lot of misnomers and misinformation and stuff on the topic. It really refers to a sort of a personality type and a dilemma. But the book and the whole deal really couldn't hurt you. It's kind of like any other, moral program. It teaches you to lead a life where you're not constantly having to watch your back and backtrack and clean up messes you've made. It teaches you to live sort of an honorable life that you can be proud of, and, at the same time, not have to, like I say, watch your back and doing all these things. And it sort of teaches you no-brainer type stuff. It's like, it hurts. Alcoholics know that it hurts to live any other way than to be honest, forthright, a good person, basically. I mean, once you get to know, I would trust the word alcoholic, and people who don't know it, go ahead, really got a beard going on here. People who don't know AA or alcoholism or what it is or the whole thing, and I'm not trying to sell you AA, I'm saying be open-minded enough to consider it, especially if you're in a crisis. But once you've kind of been around the whole vibe of sobriety and people who are sober and doing it right and are at peace and making progress, I would, above, my preacher, and I don't go to church, but above preachers and above even the president, I would trust somebody who's clean and sober more than 10 years, pretty much with my life. There's just a certain honor and dignity and a decent way that these people carry themselves. It's something, and they say it's a program of attraction, not promotion, and that attracts you. They don't talk about it or preach it. They live it, And you see something, they always say, find somebody who has something you want. And you see a certain peace and dignity in these people's lives. Because so much in this world, people want you to feel shitty and ashamed. That's what all these haters are about. It's our inclination to shame each other and hurt each other as human beings. It's a flaw. I do it. We all do it. I try not to, but it's one of those things. And really, I'm not ashamed to talk about it at all, and I won't be. I've talked about my addiction and all kinds of problems. And, you're kind of only as sick as the things you're ashamed of. There's no shame in saying, yeah, I had a problem with these things. Sure, it happened. These things happen. Pretending that they don't happen is when the real problems come in. So, I've touched on it. I mean, I could give you hours and hours on this, but, I have several friends who are in crises now, and seems like it could be useful, and it's something that I just don't discount out of hand anymore. Never, when in my youth I did, but when I finally sort of said, hey, I just don't want to drink anymore. I was like 20 something then. I'm nearly 50 now. One of the first meetings I ever went to, there was a guy, and he was young, he had like a brown beard and long hair, and I didn't know anything about alcoholism and addiction. All I knew is I'd been drinking vodka every day for months, and I couldn't stop, and I reeked of booze. And when I sort of got it, I went to a meeting at a church, and with another guy in West Hollywood in Los Angeles. We actually met at a park. He picked me up, didn't know him, complete strangers, running around, missed the meeting. We were suddenly riding together. He was driving. We get to the meeting, and after the meeting, a guy extended his hand, said, I'm John. And I went like, I was screwed up and just reeked of booze. And he said, I'm John. And I said, my name's Eric. And he kind of smelled a little bit, and he looked at me, and he saw I was strung out and messed up. And he came forward, and he hugged me. And he kind of took me by the shoulders, and he goes, yeah, it's okay, man. It's all good. Sometimes things get really screwed up when we're out there drinking and using, man. And at that moment, I realized all at once, like, oh, a whole lot more is going on here than just me drinking every day. There's, like, everything's gotten fucked up, and I'm fucked up. And it was really, he didn't try to sell me anything. He just hugged me, and he said, we do it here next week too, man. And, hope to see you again or something, and check you later, But at that moment, I realized, like, oh my God, I get it. He's saying, over a period of time, I've gotten way out of focus. And that, that happens. It's okay, it's common, and there's some, if you will, shelter from the storm here, kind of a thing. But, it's something that I used to speak on a lot, and live and go to, and as I said, it's the people who get obsessed with it and sort of take it to it's a deadly serious thing. At the same time, it's like, yeah, you can't take anything too seriously. It is what it is, you know. So, but it's something that helped me a lot. I would go back again. I don't go now. I really don't need to. But I'm not against it. You know, a lot of people I know who aren't even sober yet are like, no, I don't get in orange lifeboats. Thank you very much. I know better. And it's like, dude, you got to realize rule number one, you just don't know what you're doing. You're fucked up, you know. So why not use the tools at hand? So anyway, if one person catches anything out of this before it's cured permanently and completely through science, that's cool with me. Let me see. I'll do. I'm trying to figure out what's the total most inappropriate outro. Pissed off rapper on YouTube outro. Yo, peace out, motherfuckers.